Welcome to the METALIDADS Father of Metal podcast. Tonight you have Papa Ben and myself, Dadi Dai in residence, to talk about the three main pillars of METALIDADS: fatherhood, mental health and rock. Sometimes in that order, but to be honest, we'll dip in and out of them. We're planning on making listening to us a monthly ordeal for anyone who wants to listen.
I'm not sure who is stupid enough to do that on a regular basis.
Well, my mum likes to support me a lot.
Well, that's nice. I would like to say my wife would listen, but she also has to put up with me on a daily basis. So there's every chance that the last thing she's going to do is listen to a podcast with me.
Yeah, I can see that. I can definitely see that. I've also always been told I talk too much.
That's also something I've been told a lot as well.
Which is why we decided to do a podcast, so that other people can have to listen to us talk.
Exactly.
This first episode is going to be introducing the concept of METALIDADS. And coincidentally, as if we organised it, Ben is a founder member of METALIDADS, so I'm going to ask him some questions about that later on. Also in this episode, we're also going to be doing some shameless self-promotion of the Let There Be Talk Festival that will be going on around Barry for the next 6 months. So Ben.
Hello.
How you doing tonight? You all right? You good?
I'm okay. A little bit tired from work. Had a late finishing work, but other than that, I'm okay. Yeah.
And mental health wise, would you rate yourself out of 10?
Out of 10? I'm a little bit drained from the day, just busy with work, but I'm a solid 8.
Solid 8. That's a powerful number. That is.
Yes, yeah. I'd say I'm in a very good place right now.
That's always a good thing to hear. So METALIDADS.
Yes.
You has started up with the other founder and chief executive of METALIDADS, Daddy
Hugh.
Daddy Hugh. And that joke's not going to get old ever.
Nope. Bearing in mind, we've had to record this a few times, and this joke is popped up every time, and it doesn't get old for us.
It never will.
Nope.
So we're limiting it to one per podcast, and there may even be prizes if you can work out when we're going to do it. So you started off with Daddy Hugh, and so how did it come about that you and Daddy Hugh decided that you wanted to start up a group on fatherhood, mental health, and metal?
Yeah. So back in February of 2020, I became a father. And for the weeks after that had happened, needless to say, I chose to be a little distant from my newborn daughter.
Why was that?
And my wife. So that was mostly because, as many people know, within the UK, you get fathers get 2 weeks paternity leave, and the issue that and is something that has been said a lot by fathers is, one, that's not enough. I think there's a lot of campaigning going around trying to get that extended to 4 weeks, and two, the thing that also didn't help was my wife needed to be induced. So I had to take my paternity leave from the day of that happening. So by the time Millie was born, I actually only had a week and a half.
That must have been tough.
It was, but you didn't really think about it at the time. You just kind of did what you had to do to survive, I suppose. It wasn't a conscious decision I made to be distant. In fact, it wasn't really only until later on is when I realized that's what I was doing. But the reason why I've become a little bit distant and not so keen on even just things I'm not so keen on wanting to feed or help with feeding or even changing nappies was simply because I knew I had to go back to work within a week and a half. I couldn't afford to be too attached. So I kind of did what I had to do for that week and a half, and then I went back to work, and for all intents and purposes, that was going to be the norm. I just go to work. The job I was doing at the time was very different to what I do now, and I was doing 14-hour days, 10-hour nights. So I literally would not see my daughter potentially for 3 or 4 days in a row. Hence why another reason for the distance at the beginning. Unfortunately, a few weeks, well, I say a few, probably about eight weeks or so after she was born, a little thing called COVID happened.
So COVID?
Yeah,
I don't remember much about that. It didn't seem to affect a lot of people.
To be honest, I barely remember much of it. It's gone so quickly the last 2 years that I can't. I kind of look back and I think, where's those last few years gone?
Yeah.
You know? But yes, COVID happened and the lockdown started. So this was kind of towards the end of March. The guilt wasn't necessarily because I didn't feel like the realization of being distant hadn't hit at that point. The guilt kicked in because my job to provide was taken away from me, and I totally out of my control for that 2-week period. And for want of a better word, I suppose I just felt like a spare tool that wasn't required.
Yeah, it's one of those things that I think most fathers will have gone through at least once in the early childhood days.
Yeah.
Where you, like you say, you get like 2 weeks per paternity.
Yeah.
You don't really get a chance to get your hands dirty,
No.
almost literally when it comes to nappies.
Yeah.
And then you're there, you're back in work, you're carrying on with what you're doing, and mums are there they seem to have taken everything over, being able to do everything.
Yeah.
And you kind of walk in and go, can I do anything? No, it's fine.
Yeah.
And that's, again, never going to be, we stand in awe of mums in METALIDADS most of the time. But it's just that sort of realization that they've been able to learn how to deal with this tiny human.
Yeah.
While
also being able to keep the house going.
Yeah. Whereas where they're going, it's really little, and I'm scared to break it.
Yes. Interestingly, though, and it's something that I maybe didn't realize straight away. And I think this had come up a few times in conversation with my wife. She actually couldn't fathom how I was able to spend that much time away. So if the shoe was on the other foot, I think arguably my wife would have struggled doing what I had to do as much as I would struggle having to do what she had to do.
Yeah.
So, you know, and it's only really kind of by communicating is when you realize that.
Yeah.
Yes. So as I said, the guilt had really kicked in. I didn't feel like I was able to provide. That's kind of a societal norm, I suppose, for us, that the man is kind of considered the provider, and that's I suppose I think it's fair to say kind of how a man's worth is judged.
Yeah, I mean, certainly, definitely, that's something that we as men tend to fall into that trap of. Our manliness depends on our work and our strength and our being able to, keep the family safe.
Yes.
In however that comes under.
Yeah.
And again, there's nothing wrong with any of these kind of masculine traits, but what we tend to, as fathers, miss out on then is sort of actually the paternal part of being a father.
Yeah.
Where we can, we're, holding, bonding in the same way as mothers.
Yes.
Is difficult for us.
Oh yes, absolutely.
And then by the time most fathers get to that point, we're in a position where it's not too late, but we're always on the back foot.
Yeah. You're kind of always playing catch up, I suppose.
Yeah.
And that's kind of how it was. It was, when I was working, I would kind of get home, and after I'd finished my stint working, and I'd have those few days off, it would be right, catch me up. What has she done recently that I've missed? And it would be, you'd be catching up on things that you're missing as part of their development. But yeah, so I think it was needless to say, within those first couple of weeks of me needing being forced to have that time off, it was very clear that I had was suffering with postpartum depression, which for those who maybe are not aware, it's not something that's talked about a lot. You don't really hear a lot of that particular phrase often. It's the male equivalent or the father equivalent of postnatal depression. So it just so happens at the time of kind of my struggling, I'd recently got back in contact with Hugh and
Daddy Hugh.
Daddy Hugh. And he's someone that I've known. Well, at the time, it was for probably getting on for 10 years. It's obviously a bit longer now. And yeah, recently we got back in contact. I can't even remember how that happened. It just kind of happened. And I found out he had not that long recently become a father. His daughter's a little bit older than mine. And he was struggling. Mm-hmm. And we started talking. And the one thing I did do when I realized that things weren't good for me, I spoke to our local community midwife and asked about if there was any support that they were aware of, and I believe I'm pretty much repeating what she said. She said there's barely enough support for mothers, let alone fathers. And that wasn't her being mean. That was her literally telling us the current state of the support structure for mothers and parents in general. Yes, that was frustrating to hear, as you can imagine.
Absolutely. And I think, again, we are very lucky to have the NHS and have the work that is being done there. Just recently, I was on a conference call with quite a lot of people from Flying Start.
Oh, yes.
Who were talking a lot more about trying to get more results for fathers, more resources for fathers, and being able to, because they're acknowledging that fatherhood and mental health is in a terrible state.
Yes, and the statistics don't paint that picture. I think, unfortunately, it definitely in the UK, if not potentially in other places, 75% of all suicides are male, and of that 75%, a large portion, I think it's about 90% of that are males between, I think it's 21 and 45, or 25 and 45.
I'm just outside of that, so that's good.
Yep. You've beaten the odds.
I have beaten the odds.
But that statistic alone, I think, paints a really quite startling picture, which I think, admittedly, I think this is something we talked about personally the other day. It's something that's only actually started to really be talked about in the last, ironically, around the time that METALIDADS was formed. Was formed, yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, you're right in that we've been sort of been aware of mental health for a long time, but they're bringing males into mental health because we as men, let's be honest, we're really good at bottling up those emotions.
Yes, and funnily enough, that was kind of part of the issue when looking for a form of support, because part of that conversation that I had with Hugh about whether or not he had found any successful groups, he hadn't, but the groups he had found, he described them as, and there's nothing wrong with this particular type of person or group, but they were admittedly more focused around kind of being a bit more laddie, I think is the right term, very kind of football orientated, more specifically football, maybe, but sports certainly. And their idea of support, I suppose, was to meet up on a weekend, have a few pints, watch the football, have some banter, and at all costs, don't talk about your struggles and your things, your family and kids or everything that kind of comes with that, which is fine if that is your way of being able to relax and that is your way of escaping. There's absolutely nothing wrong with that. However, we both, myself and Hugh, wanted something that did include that openness. We wanted to encourage the discussions that we should be having as fathers and as men.
Yeah, And very much so. I think one of the things that we as a group of METALIDADS kind of foster is that sort of giving advice as fathers from whichever stage you're in.
Yes.
One of the nicest things that I've seen on the Facebook group has been that when somebody puts a question on, people will pile in with advice for them.
Yeah.
So, my baby's not sleeping at night, that sort of thing. And then people will give advice and will make it feel normal.
Yes.
I think one of the things, again, with men, we like to know it all. And with parenting, there's no way you can.
No.
So getting people going, oh yeah, I've had that struggle. Getting people to acknowledge that struggle is real.
Yes.
Kind of takes away that failure of parenting.
Yeah.
And hopefully we will, bit by bit, help people to learn to be better parents.
Yes, while also not just, I suppose, helping become better parents and hopefully more in tune with their own feelings and mental health.
Yeah, because at the end of the day, as a group, we are very much mental health, fatherhood orientated.
Yeah.
With a hook to get people in and talking of heavy metal.
Yes, and that was a response to the findings that Hugh had found. After chatting, we kind of said, well, if somebody can set a group up around football or a sport, why can't we set a group up around music? And it just so happens that myself and you are very into kind of rock and heavy metal and that whole kind of alternative genre, I suppose you could call it. So he said, well, why don't we... And the other thing is as well, is we realised that if you put a load of men in a room or in a group and say, hey, go talk about your feelings, nothing's going to get said.
Yeah, you can watch the tumbleweed going down the bar when,
yes.
Shall we talk about our feelings?
It doesn't quite work like that. Alternatively, the other thing that I think we realised was dads or men in general need more in common than just being dads.
Yeah.
We need something else to connect on as well. So again, if you put everyone in the room and said, talk about your kids, I think you'd get a bit more success than talk about your feelings, but not by much. There wouldn't be a connection made.
No, because we as men tend to be quite statty.
Yes.
So it would be...
Oh, yes, absolutely.
My child is 4 years old. My child is...
Yes.
They've just started talking. They've just started doing whatever. End of.
It's very factual.
Yes.
And, it doesn't make for a flowing conversation. We don't really we don't gush over so much of the details, do we? So we thought, well, why don't we use the music side of things to encourage conversation, and hopefully with that encouragement will come a more open conversation as and when it's required about kids, about how you feel, about anything really. So very much the music side of things is the gateway for some. Others don't need that kind of encouragement. Others join the group with no intention of talking about heavy metal at all, because they're not into that, but they're very happy to come in and talk immediately about how they feel or about fatherhood. Alternatively, we also talk, we have so many conversations in the group. There are, gaming, computer games comes up very regularly. Films, TV shows. So there's always something to talk about. And it's just that we use the music thing because of our combined interest in it, which is how METALIDADS was born, really.
Excellent. So how many of you were there to begin with?
There was myself and Hugh, and we invited a combination between us. There was about 20 people that we invited that we knew personally, that we kind of remembered or knew that we're into heavy metal and also were fathers. That was the beginning of it, really. And And that's all we thought it would ever be. We only ever thought, well, this is nice. We've got 20 people. Somebody might comment in the group.
One day?
One day, yeah. It won't just be me and Hugh, because, in those early days, it was kind of me and Hugh, and that was it. And that was okay, because we had some advice very early on that from another person who runs a dad's group who was much bigger than ours at the time. And they said that men will quite often read everything in those groups, but not so won't so often reply or contribute. But the important thing is that things will be read, and so we realized that as long as we create content that is helpful, we can keep doing that. But we never thought we would kind of get to the stage where we are today, where we're recording a podcast about it, put it that way.
Well, yeah, and obviously the membership has grown a little.
Yes, we're at about, from memory, it's about 430 members now, which stretch as far wide as Australia and Brazil. I think we got someone up in the Philippines, Ireland, all across the UK, South Africa, the States.
So it's an international group now.
METALIDADS International, I suppose. Yeah.
Maybe we should get a plane.
I mean, I'm not sure who we could contact about grant funding for a plane. But
I mean, we got the pilot. We can get Bruce to do that. Bruce Dickinson, he'll want a pilot.
Yeah, he's only up the road.
Exactly.
In Bruce, so that shouldn't be an issue.
Yeah, no worries whatsoever.
No, maybe he's got a plane we can borrow.
Exactly, and then we can, finally get that METALIDADS in Brazil faction sorted.
Yes.
Just because we mentioned Brazil a couple of times, how have we got members in Brazil?
So one of the things that we thought was a good idea last year, due to some grant funding that we had, the original funding was for motivational speakers. That was kind of the remit. There was no specific. It didn't have to be in person or anything. So what we decided to do was use the popular celebrity video messaging app, not Patreon, Cameo. That's the one. Where you can ordinarily people go on, they pay money, and they get a celebrity of choice to give somebody a birthday shout out, or something like that. We decided to use that as an opportunity to ask them some questions about how they find, we wouldn't necessarily just target men and fathers. It would be, anyone in general, but we would have, if we knew a prolific father was on the app, we would kind of target them.
By prolific father, do you mean had 50 of them?
Yes.
Okay.
And so more, I suppose I should probably be more specific. So we would use the app and we would see notable members from the kind of metal and rock community. So music artists mostly. One of those happened to be Max Cavalera from Soulfly, or Cavalera Conspiracy,
or if you're old like me, Sepultura.
Sepultura. Considered a legend within the Brazilian thrash scene. Pioneered it, I suppose, arguably. And he famously, he's a father with his son, who they have a band together called the Cavalera Conspiracy. We sent them a message, just said, hey, we're METALIDADS. We just, here's a couple of questions. How are you doing? How do you find fatherhood? How did you find it while touring? And there was a few messages. Do you mind replying to these? He was very gracious enough to give us a lovely video with his answers. Even wrote us a little song, which I thought was absolutely incredible.
Which is available on our YouTube channel.
Yep, you can find all that on our YouTube channel. That's where we posted all of these. And so, that was lovely. We posted the video up on YouTube, and within 24 hours, we had a contingency of about 30 Brazilian members. And one of the questions that get asked when you join our community page, community group, private group, that's the one, is how did you hear from us? And every single one of them said Max Cavalera video. So that it's nice that we had a response in that sense, but it was never a recruitment response. What we were aiming for. It was just, get notable people in the community,
talking about fatherhood and mental health again.
Yeah, and it's trying to dispel those myths that, and the reality is, you might hear the music and you might hear how aggressive and angry it is, but we're all softies, and we all need to be honest with our feelings.
Yeah, and it's very vital, especially from going back to that mental health thing, that fathers do get in touch with their feelings for their kids. You mentioned it yourself, feeling very distant from your girl. That it's not good. And
no,
that's one of the things that I think we've promoted within METALIDADS is get in touch with the kids, get it on their level, and just be good fathers. Don't worry about what people are looking at.
No,
worry about what's happening in your house, sort of thing.
Exactly.
Because the kids are just so important to us. So we've got a membership of over 400 now, and you've grown it, and you've grown it in a local way as well. So how did people in Barry, which is where METALIDADS HQ is really, how did that sort of develop? How did you get members in that area?
So in our infancy of I say maybe 20, or maybe we had 30 members by this time, we wanted to do kind of events every so often that would allow us to get together and do an activity that would also benefit the local community. So by this time it was the summer of 2020, it must have been, I suppose.
So it was in that break of lockdown where we were in between the two lockdowns.
That's it. Yeah. We weren't. There was no rules being broken there.
Eat out to help out.
That's it.
At that time, wasn't it?
You really that is the one situation where you absolutely need to put the last bit on, otherwise,
the
context could be horribly wrong there. But and we decided to, a few of us from the group were going to meet up at Barry Island, which is the local beach to us. Popular tourist place, but also, unfortunately, with tourism also comes litter. And we decided to do a litter pick. So a few of us from the group met up, had a lovely walk across the beach during the summer. Sun was out. Although it was the evening, but, still a lovely walk. We picked up some litter, cleaned up the beach a bit, and had a lovely chat. It was there where, funnily enough, as a result of having this chat, I realised that one of the guys had gone through a very similar experience with getting pregnant, and their struggles were very in line with kind of ours as well. So straight away we found something in common there, which was great, and that was only made possible by the fact that we all met up and kind of did this activity together. But you've got that kind of, it's a double-edged, not a double-edged blade, but it's kind of double whammy of feeling good, because you're physically feeling good because you're going for a walk. You feel good because you're able to talk, so your mental health kind of improves, and ultimately the environment benefits, and so does the local community. So that was we knew we were going to do other things like that, but that was the first proper activity that we did in person because we physically could. We decided to post that just around on other local community groups, one of them being Beautiful Barry, which is, again, they've been a great supporter of ours. What we weren't ready for was the overwhelming positive response, because we kind of said, hey, we're a local dads group, this is what we're about. A few of us met up, went down the beach, picked up some litter, we had a lovely chat about it. That was the first real kind of explosion, I suppose, of membership, and that was the first wave of momentum that we rode.
So that's the point where you realised that actually you developed a niche for you were onto something, I guess.
Yeah, because when we first started, and it was just us, myself and Hugh, and that 20 or so others, we realized that we were going to be niche. But what we realized as time went on actually was the strength is in the niche part of it. And that was only made kind of more aware to us when we started speaking to other groups who were maybe not so niche. I suppose it means that although you don't hit quite as big an audience, you tend to have, I don't think it's fair to say a better quality audience, but certainly a more focused audience where conversation flows in a more natural way, I suppose, because you all have that one thing in common, or mostly have that one thing in common.
Well, technically, you've got three things in common.
Well, yes. But the thing that you find easy to communicate about, and music is the great leveler, I suppose. If you find it hard to talk about how you feel or what's going on in your life, people find it much easier to communicate through music, even if that means sharing a song.
Yeah.
It could be as simple as them sharing a song and saying, "This is how I'm currently feeling," and that song will do the job for them. But yeah, and that first post that we that we popped up on that beautiful Barry page, yeah, and all of a sudden it was, apart from the overwhelming positive feedback, which was great, it was the membership requests that we weren't ready for, and all of a sudden it suddenly dawned on us that maybe we had struck gold here, which I think, was it as a result of that post you found us?
I was a little bit after that.
Okay.
I found it through. I can't remember how I found you guys, to be honest with you. I know that the first thing that I did was I had a chat with Daddy Hugh. He was having I think it was a virtual barbecue, because by this point we're back into lockdown.
Yes.
Yeah. And therefore, it was like everyone was in their own gardens, because like gardens were so important then.
Oh yeah.
Let's be honest. And I sort of joined in because I was doing some stuff in the garden, but I didn't have much time. So I was like, hi, I'm Dai. I like metal. I'm a dad. Yeah, I'm interested, sort of thing.
Yeah.
And then I got roped into the committee.
Yes.
Yeah. But we'll hopefully get me out of that at some point. So obviously we then get to moving on to, there's a committee.
Yeah, and the reason why a committee kind of exists is simply because as we started to grow, as I said, that initial kind of wave of momentum that took us up to about 80 or 90 members, and then there was kind of a natural momentum that kind of has always carried us ever since.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, it kind of dips and dives, but we see it does, at least for me, it does feel like it is still that wave of momentum, but we've just been able to take it to another level each time. And yeah.
So we then sort of, at that point, I think we all got out of lockdown, thankfully.
Yes.
And we begin to start to do regular events. So if you're a dad from Barry or Cardiff or Bridgend,
if you don't mind traveling,
what can you do with METALIDADS at the moment? So
at the moment, as a regular thing we got going on, every Wednesday we meet up at Barry Rugby Club, where we have at 8 p.m. Where we have an evening of crap darts.
And we are really bad.
Yeah, I mean, the wall gets more action than the dartboard.
To be fair, yeah.
Yeah. We make stormtroopers look like a good shot, to be honest.
Yeah.
Crap pool, which
we're better at.
Yeah. We keep
the balls on the table.
Mostly.
Yeah.
So it's kind of crap darts, not quite so crap, but still pretty crap pool. And a pint and a drink. Doesn't have to be alcoholic, obviously. And yeah, it's just, I think it's nice to know that you've got an evening once a week. I mean, that you don't have to come every week, but there's one point in the week where you can meet up with people who've got have got at least one similar interest to you. And if you're also really crap at either darts or pool, you're in good company.
And if you're good at darts, you're going to win.
Yeah. So or pool.
To be fair, if you're average at darts, you're going to win.
If you can hit the dartboard, you're going to win.
Yeah, let's be fair.
Yeah. Yes. So that's every Wednesday, and then every Saturday we have a coffee morning at a place called Awesome Wales, which is a zero waste shop and cafe. They've been very, very, very supportive of us, and anything that we've kind of needed, any advice or anything like that, they've been more than happy to help out with, including also facilitating us on a Saturday morning, which I think maybe judging by the conversations that I had on a Saturday morning, they're starting to regret that now a little bit.
Yeah, quite a lot, I think.
Yeah.
But, Stuart and Amy are hoping that one day they'll have a Saturday morning where it'll just be normal.
And that will be the Saturday that we don't turn up.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah. But we're hoping to maybe have a chat with those guys in the next couple of episodes, just so they can kind of show what they're currently doing as well. But yeah, Stuart and Amy have been very, very, very supportive of us, and we can only thank you for that. And so that is every Saturday morning that we have that coffee meet. Amazingly, the conversations are certainly much more interesting on a Saturday. It goes to show when you're a parent, when the chat is much more lively over a coffee than it is after a pint or two.
Mainly because we're all too tired to actually, make sentences by that point as parents.
Yes.
So just really briefly going to touch on, obviously, if you want to join us, we are available on Facebook, and you just type in METALIDADS. We're going to be the first one to come up.
Yep.
Otherwise, we'll be doing something on copyright infringement because, we've got the Metali in our names. So, we're going to be like Lars Ulrich.
We have gone as far as trademarking the name as well. So
yay. Yeah. But also, I believe we're on Instagram and Twitter.
Yep. Both of those are just at METALIDADS. Also on YouTube, as previously mentioned, stick METALIDADS in and we should be the only thing that pops up. And obviously with this podcast, I believe it should be Anchor FM/Fathers of Metal. That will get you here. And that was only because we've called the podcast the Fathers of Metal or Fathers of Metal podcast. Yeah.
That covers that one. So
we have an email address. Sorry, just thought I'd mention.
Always good.
METALIDADS@gmail.com. If you need to get in contact with us, that's the way to do it currently. We may look at potentially getting our own email address at some point, make ourselves look a bit more official. But at the moment, METALIDADS@gmail.com. If you need to get in contact with us. Alternatively, the most action happens on the Facebook group. It's the most kind of community-driven side of things. But if you don't use Facebook, absolutely, we will do our best to accommodate you, and we'll make sure you receive updates on any events and that are upcoming as well. So if you would like to attend, then you're not going to be left out of those either, including the regular events as well.
So yeah, that leads us nicely into upcoming events.
Okay.
So, tell me, there's a festival of Let There Be Talk. So, first of all, why Let There Be Talk?
Let There Be Talk is kind of a hashtag that we've always kind of used, and it's a play on words for the Let There Be Rock, which is a very famous song by AC/DC. And the hashtag was always used just in a way to kind of just get the message out there that, get out there and talk, chat.
It's good to talk.
It's always good to talk, yeah. I mean, we were very, very lucky to secure a grant funding from Comic Relief. We put the application in. I don't think any of us really thought that we were going to get it. You kind of look at Comic Relief and you think those guys are, big deal type of guys. But we thought if you shoot for the stars, if you miss, you're still going in the right direction. But it just so happens that we were right on target, and they were very, very gracious enough to accept our bid and gave us £5,000 in order to put on this 6-month festival, which is made up of lots of, although we say mini events, they're
events in their own.
Yeah,
right,
yeah. It's just all
it's a
under the
festival
umbrella.
of events.
It's a festival of events. Great. It launched the 1st of March on St. David's Day. And since then, we've had a couple of events already. We
spent some of Comic Relief's money on cocaine.
Yes, cocaine bear, that is.
Yeah. I
It's
knew I should
really,
have put that second word in.
It's really important, isn't it? Yes. Otherwise, context could be out there.
Yeah. Admittedly, that is an awesome movie. Again,
yes,
if you've got this far, you really need to go and see Cocaine Bear.
Yes,
it's indescribable in the same way as
way to describe
Nicolas Cage's Unbearable Weight of Massive Talent.
Absolutely.
But honestly, it's a lot of fun.
Yeah, it's worth noting as well. The reason why we had that funding specifically from Comic Relief was to allow us to put these events on, like cinema trips and other things that we have coming up, but to be able to incur the costs so that our membership had more of an opportunity to come to these things, because we do understand with the current way that things are, and I think it's fair to say that one of the big stresses of being a parent is the cost of things.
Yeah. And kids don't get cheaper. Trust me.
But all that to look forward to. So we thought if we can get the funding to be able to pay for things like cinema tickets or food, if we're doing something that doesn't necessarily cost money, but we want to be able to provide something to the membership, it just allows us to incur those costs, and we would just like to think that will help. If that helps encourage even one person to come to one of our events, and as a result they benefit from it,
that's what we're here.
That's money well spent, and that's how we see it.
Yeah. So I mean, all of the events that we're going to go through in a few moments' time will be either free or very low cost. In fact, I think so far they're all free.
Yeah.
We've got a few things coming up. First of all, this one may have happened by the time this goes out, but we have a gym and gin event, which is generally getting some guys down to the local gym, Snap Fitness, so that they can have a workout for free.
Yep. And
then have a drink afterwards, because hydration is important,
extremely important. And at METALIDADS, we are very, very supportive of good hydration.
Yes. Even if it's not necessarily water.
No, but there is water in alcohol, isn't there?
Yep, that's it. We're good with that. And
and
I suppose if you have cider, it's like one of your 5 a day.
One of your 5 a day, and there's water in it.
Exactly. What more can you want? After that, we will then be having our killer darts tournament. If you can hit a board, you're going to be an advantage on that one. We then begin our interesting moments of would I lie to you?
Yes.
You'd lie to you? That's a bit harsh, mate. Honestly.
Well, when you've known him for as long as I have.
Yeah, okay.
Yes.
But that's play on the very famous TV program, Would I Lie to You?
Yep.
Get in touch with Daddy Hugh to get onto that. We then, on April the 12th, are going to be having a slightly different thing for me and you. Something we've never done before.
No.
We are going to be popping our Dungeons and Dragons cherry.
Very, very excited about that. It's something that I've always loved the idea of, but haven't really had a really good, proper opportunity to have a go. I'm a big fan of kind of role-play games in terms of video games. And yeah, I think.
So glad you said video games. Eh? I was wondering where that was going.
And I certainly think things like Big Bang Theory has made things like Dungeons and Dragons quite popular. But it's something I was interested in before then. Not to sound hipster, but I was into it before.
You were into it before it was cool. Yeah, we know, Ben.
But yeah, and it's great because we have a couple of guys in the group who are experienced with Dungeons and Dragons. One who's got some experience as a dungeon master, and he said, great. We've had a bit of a crash course kind of already.
Yeah.
So
with our good friends at Roll Plus Pod.
Yes, and interestingly, when we kind of found out that this was going potentially to be a thing, I needed or wanted to kind of get a little bit more experience, I suppose, with how it could go, because in my head I've got a picture of how this is going to play out, but never trying it. It's like sex, I suppose. In your head you can imagine it. But until you actually have a go, it's undoubtedly it's almost like never like you imagine it in your head.
Yeah,
and then you have a go for the first time, and you realise it's a very different beast altogether.
Yeah,
you have to then think about the other. Well, I was going to say the other people in the room, but the other person.
Traditionally, there should only be one.
Yes.
I mean, again, we're not saying that polyamory is bad at this moment in time.
Absolutely not.
And we're moving swiftly on.
Absolutely. But yeah, so
you listened to Roll Plus Pod, which I think I recommended to you.
You did. I said, you knew that I was a fan of the podcast, and I knew that you listened to podcasts, and you happened to say that you knew of one that would be pretty good. And the great thing about Roll Plus Pod is takes you from the very, very beginning of a campaign. And you're there for the journey from day one, and that was really great to see. And the thing that I was pleasantly surprised about was how immersive I felt it was, and I wasn't even the one playing.
Yeah, the world building in it is incredible. I really enjoy listening to those guys.
Yes, if you would like to have a listen to Roll Plus Pod, then
they're available on Spotify, and
I think they're available on all good podcasting platforms. Yeah, whichever one is your one of choice, they should be available on it, and you just type in Roll Plus Pod.
Excellent. So then we've got a couple of other things in April. Generally, there's a few gigs going on, and then we get the biggie. The end of April, we have the Highway to Health Cycle Challenge.
Yes.
Which, for those listeners who don't actually know me and Ben, we're slightly on the bigger side.
Yes.
So the cycle challenge is going to be on one of those lovely little spin bikes that generally takes up one of our thighs.
Yes.
And we're going to be trying to go as far up the Welsh coastal path. Not in reality, we're just going to be doing it and clocking the mileage.
Yeah. On
Saturday, the 29th of April.
Yes, that is down at Barry train station, the coffee house that's down by there.
Yep.
That's where we're going to be hosting that one. And anyone's welcome to pop along, and if they want to put a couple of whatever they like, they can put whatever they like. And if they'd like to do,
they want to give us a rest, we're gonna take it very gratefully. Let's be honest.
Yes.
And moving on into sort of the rest of the year, we're looking to get some more family orientated events going on. I think we've got barbecue, family quasar, where we're going to have the opportunity to shoot our children with lasers.
Yeah. What else?
And I think that we'll then. A few of the men will be able to join us in our beer tasting. Yes, in METALIDADS, we're even giving you free beer.
Even free beer. Which, if you think about it, providing that they're old enough, can still bring your kids along.
Yes.
As long as they're over the age of 18,
you
can bring your kids.
Exactly. So that's us for this month. If you're still listening, thank you so much.
And we're sorry.
Yeah. I feel we really ought to apologise for this.
Although I think we do plan for this to get better as time goes on. We have things in the works.
Can't get any worse.
No.
But more seriously, over the next few months, we are going to be introducing different sections to this, where we're going to be talking to some guys from a very interesting group called Stand Tall, who are a group who's set up to improve men's health and mental health in Barry, where they do weightlifting and group mental health chats, which we at METALIDADS are obviously all in support of. And we were really lucky to have done their pilot, and genuinely it's an amazing thing to do. Yeah,
you benefited from it greatly.
So
you
much.
all did actually. All the pilot.
I think whilst life changing is thrown around a lot in people's things, this has very much rejuvenated a few of us to really look at where our lives are.
Yeah.
So I really can't recommend that enough. And then obviously we've mentioned that hopefully the guys from Awesome will come in and have a chat with us, which means you lucky listeners don't have to listen to us so much.
It's amazing, isn't it?
Which is why you want to come back next month.
And hopefully as time goes on, we'll find other guests to interview and kind of find a little bit more out about their story. So that's awesome. We also have things like we'll have like an album club planned, where we'll kind of let everyone know the album that we're going to listen to that month, and then discuss it the month later, I suppose.
And
so
then
that's pretty cool.
And maybe some more sort of practical fatherhood type conversations as well.
Yes.
So thank you so much for listening to this, and hopefully listen to you next month.
Yes.
No, you'll listen to us next month.
Yes.
That's what we were going for.
It would become creepy if we were to listen to them next month.
That's really a good point.
That would imply that we are near them.
Yeah.
Yes.
So on that note, it's good night from me.
And good night from me. And we'll see you next time.